Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Breeders' Cup special of the SBK Betting Podcast. Tom Collins, myself, joining you from our respective jurisdictions. We're on either side of the world, but we have found a window, and I mean a small window. California and Saudi Arabia are awkward places to find a good time where we both can sit and discuss one of the most eagerly anticipated meetings of the year. And Tom, I know that you must be one of the most excited people out there. This is what you live and breathe for. This is what you wait for. You're not just an American racing fan for a reason. You talk about the American racing, but I'd imagine this is where it all culminates. How great, how big of a 2 days is this coming up at Del Mar on Friday, Saturday?
Firstly, I wish I was in the same place that you are. No offense to anyone in Saudi Arabia who might be watching this, but I would love to be in California right now. Look, I live and breathe American racing. Hopefully, quite a few people know that who watch the podcast and maybe follow me on Twitter. But it is the be-all and end-all for me. Like the Cheltenham Festival is for jumps fans, or Royal Ascot is for UK flat fans. I mean, I could give plenty of scenarios like that, but that is what the Breeders' Cup is for me. I wait all year for these 2 days. We have 14 spectacular races, 5 on the Friday for the 2-year-olds, 9 on the Saturday for the 3-year-olds and older horses. Some brilliant contests, including the best 2-year-olds around, and some extremely competitive races on the Saturday as well. There's just one odds-on favourite across 9 races. It's going to be an excellent couple of days, not only for a viewing spectacle, and you'll get first-hand viewing where you are, but from a punting perspective as well.
Yeah, certainly is. And we've got Future Stars Friday for the juveniles on Friday, and then the best of the classic generation, the older generations on Saturday. So it's very much a focal on the best that the world can bring. And it's very much an international field this year. You've got a great load of Japanese runners, 17 coming over. The Europeans have got another excellent team coming over, obviously topped by Aidan O'Brien's string. We've got South Africans coming back for the first time in a long time as well. But we have to start with the big one. And the Breeders' Cup Classic is the most eagerly anticipated race of the year, very much because City of Troy has had this as his final race that we now know it's going to be as he's heading off to stud next year, earmarked for a while now. It seems like they've always had this in the back of their mind, probably since his 2-year-old days, but it really became obvious and apparent around Juddmonte International time that they were definitely going to go and take this race on. This is a son of Justify out of a Galileo mare. This is what the Coolmore team have always wanted when it comes to the perfect racehorse that can deliver a race that they've yet to win. But he has never raced on dirt. He has never raced against these types of rivals. He's never raced in America. And Tom, he is currently the 7-4 market leader for this race, where you've got horses that know what they're doing in this kind of scenario. My first question to you is, are you surprised by the price of this horse in considering what he has to take on?
Surprised? Probably not, just because of the hype around City of Troy. And obviously, everyone's looking at his form figures and just form in general this season. He's been virtually untouchable with that Derby success, the Eclipse win, the Juddmonte International over Calandigan, who kind of boosted the form a couple of weeks ago at Ascot. So, I'm not surprised. Do I want to bet him at 2-1? No, I literally cannot bet City of Troy at sub 2-1. I think his price is unfair in terms of what he's shown so far, and the big question mark of, is he going to handle the dirt? It's not just, and I feel like I need to get this point across because many people have had opinions on this. It's not just, will he be able to transfer his form from turf to dirt? That is not it. On paper, of course, that's all you're looking at, but it's the kickback that's the main issue here. If you've never watched dirt racing before, there's a lot of kickback, even at big meetings like the Breeders' Cup where they make the main track super fast. There is still a lot of kickback. He's going to be chewing some dirt, swallowing dirt in the middle part of the race, and it's whether he can still produce that A-plus performance that we've seen throughout this season. If he does, I mean, he's the horse to beat, but it's a big if.
It really is going to test that mental durability that they claim that he has. Can he, as you say, swallow the dirt and have faced the ferociousness of the conditions and still show off this beautiful action that he has, the agility he has, and also prove that he can be faster than he's ever shown before. So all of those aspects he does need to prove. So I agree with you. It's a short price for a horse that hasn't confirmed this. But what kind of race does he have? What is the competition he has against him? Because you know these horses inside out. These are American bred, and yes, he might have a sire that was a Triple Crown winner. but these are purebred dirt type horses, whereas these are probably a bit of a mixture. So who are his field of rivals? What does the picture look like?
Well, the picture is kind of favourable for City of Troy. It's not the best classic in terms of depth, of quality of horse. Now, just one more thing on City of Troy before I go through a couple of others. His pedigree suggests he'll handle the dirt, but Justifies don't always handle the dirt in the US. We just think that he's going to handle it because he's by Justify, who was a dirt horse. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's just going to take to it like a duck to water. He's drawn well in 3, but the speed's outside, so he will chew dirt. There's no way he's getting on the front end. That is not a possibility. And Ryan's not going to switch him wide either because you don't want to be giving away ground on the Del Mar turns. So he's literally going to be in behind horses. His rivals, look, Fierceness is second in the market. He won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year. Came back to win the Travers this season. He was very in and out until the Travers, and that day he kind of performed to the level that Mike Rapoli and Todd Pletcher were hoping. But no horse in the history of the Breeders' Cup has ever won the Juvenile and come back a year later to win the Classic. So how can you have Fierceness at a short price? Then you're looking at the other US contenders. They all need to improve to get up to the RPR standard of winning a Breeders' Cup Classic. Maybe Arthur's Ride can steal it off the front, but he's proven recently that he's not the horse that everyone hoped he would be. Tappet Tries could steal it from behind. But again, he's just a bit of a plodder. He doesn't have that exceptional star power. And then you've got the Japanese horse, Forever Young. Maybe he's the joker in the pack.
Interesting. And you've touched on the sort of the classic form, and this is what we like to see. We want to see a 3-year-old, I suppose, that is maybe at the level of what City of Troy has shown in the UK, because the older horses might have seen their best last year. So that is the Fiercenesses and the Forever Youngs. They're the more improving types that we haven't got to the ceiling yet of. So is there one of them, even if there is a slight concern about Fierceness, and the stats against him from the Juvenile to this year, and the fact that Forever Young, has gone back to Japan and he's back again. So he's done a lot of traveling, and he's been on the road since early this year, being in Dubai too.
Yeah, look, I respect Fierceness, but I can't have him at a short price. When things go even slightly wrong for Fierceness, he tends to bottle it and not perform. He's had the perfect trips recently, and yes, he's a very, very good horse when he gets a perfect trip, but he's not going to sit on the front here. There are speedier rivals. He's likely to sit 4th or 5th, and that is if he breaks well, so I can't have him. I like Forever Young. I understand, as you say, he's had probably quite a long season. He was in the Saudi Derby, the UAE Derby, both of which he won in impressive fashion and different kind of way of doing so. Saudi Derby ran down Bentanato and Bookham Dano with a big late burst down the middle of the track. UAE Derby, he was just way the best horse. He came back in the Kentucky Derby and everything went wrong. People's eyes were drawn to Sierra Leone and how this Coolmore horse has come from the back with a big swooping run and just narrowly missed out on a photo. But actually, I think Forever Young ran the best race. He was squeezed out at the start from his middle draw. He again had traffic in running. He made his move at the same time as Sierra Leone. And Sierra Leone was leaning all over him in the home straight. Some people said 6 of one, half dozen of the other, but that was not the case. Forever Young had the worst of that bumping match in the latter stages. And he was also only beaten a nose and a short head. So I think he was the horse to take out of the Kentucky Derby. And I watched all 3 Triple Crown races, of course, and I thought he was the best horse that was in all 3 Triple Crown races. So I want him as the 3-year-old coming out of that. He's had one start in Japan after a long break. That was always the plan. They've said that since the start of the season. They were going to go back, have a long break, let him mentally and physically mature, become a better and stronger horse, have one little prep in Japan where he'd be 80-85% fit, hopefully win that and go to the Breeders' Cup Classic. Everything has gone swimmingly. Forever Young was not the finished article at the start of the season, and he still performed very well in the US against a good, slightly above average 3-year-old crop. I hate the draw in stall 1, and I think this is a big point we've got to talk about. He is also a step slow in the early stages, and therefore he's going to be chewing dirt, but we've seen in the past that he can take it. He has proven that he can come from behind in a US big field contest on the dirt. City of Troy hasn't done so yet. So I'll take Forever Young. He comes with risks attached, but he's a much bigger price than City of Troy. You could even bet him each way.
Yeah, he's 11-2, and with SBK, you've got a 25% winnings boost on the Breeders' Cup Classic. So 11-2, when you've got a City of Troy at 7-4, this is the horse, as you say, has got plenty more boxes ticked already. Let's touch on the draw. You mentioned Forever Young is in draw 1. We know City of Troy is drawn in 3. Where is the best position to be in a field of like this, a field of 14? And in terms of how the race will pan out, how do you envisage it, knowing the horses in terms of their running style as you do?
So it largely depends on what kind of horse you got as to which is the preferred draw, but the general rule of thumb in any race in the US, whether it be on the dirt or the turf, a sprint or a long distance race, is that the golden stalls are 3, 4, 5. So on that basis, City of Troy has found the ideal spot. There's one horse inside him in Highland Falls who's going to go forward. He won't be on the front, but he'll probably sit maybe fourth or fifth in the early stages for Godolphin and Brad Cox, which could allow Ryan to either track across and grab the rail, but then that presents the problem of kickback and also trying to get a clear run. Or Ryan could try and sit alongside in that midfield kind of spot on City of Troy and look to loop around the home turn. There's a lot of speed up front, as I've already talked about. Arthur's Ride will definitely go forward from the outside. I think he's probably the quickest horse in the race. Derma Sotogake gets first-time blinkers. He's shown a lot of speed before in the Breeders' Cup Classic and in previous US and Dubai encounters. And then you've also got Newgate, who's drawn wide again for Bob Baffert, again in first-time blinkers, who should go forward, and he's shown plenty of early in the past. So there's going to be speed in the race. There always is in the Classic. They'll probably go 46 and change, maybe 47 if you're lucky, which should set it up for the Stalker closers. However, we know that the Breeders' Cup, and at Del Mar specifically, the track runs so fast it's very difficult to come from way out of it. So you need to sit in that second flight if you're going to have the best chance of winning.
And this is what I find fascinating. Del Mar, it's a tight turn. There's a huge amount of possibility of probably quite a messy race. But on top of that, every jockey and probably every trainer prior to this race will be thinking, right, we know who the best horse possibly in the world is. We're going to make sure this isn't going to be easy for Ryan Moore and City of Troy. So I can imagine or potentially predict quite a messy race. This is going to be a race where they will do whatever they can to possibly bully him that little bit as well. So can you see this being a bit of throw it all up in the air and anything can happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's a Breeders' Cup Classic. It's the biggest race of the year. Many people could argue Kentucky Derby is, but that's obviously for 3-year-olds, and this is for older horses as well. Every trainer, every jockey is going to do everything they can within the rules to win this race, and with a huge question mark about City of Troy. Why wouldn't you try to rough him up, get him into a bit of a box against the inside? We've seen that in the past with Irish challengers, specifically from Aidan O'Brien, who is 0 from 17 in the Classic going forward into this race. So they're going to try everything. City of Troy, I should say, I don't know if I've actually said this so far, I hope he wins. As a neutral, obviously I'll have a bet in the race, but as a neutral, I'm not an owner, a trainer, a jockey, anything like this. I want him to win, much like everyone I imagine watching this podcast from England, Ireland, wherever you're watching it. I just don't think the price is very fair. As a punter, I don't want to be taking that. The risk-free reward doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and I have to remind everyone you've been incredibly loyal to City of Troy, and we'll go back all the way back to when he first ran his maiden, when there was a betting slip. I think it was for the Derby that you had anti-post. Was it for the Guineas or one or the other? But you've kept your loyalty despite what happened in the Guineas, and it all came good for you in the Derby. Okay, if Forever Young would be right at the top of your list from a price perspective, can you see City of Troy coming in the first 4 at least? And if not, who else potentially could be around it if you're looking to bet this race? Have a couple of options.
Well, obviously it's an interesting race, isn't it? Because City of Troy takes up so much of that share in the market right now. If you kind of put him to one side and say, I don't want to bet this horse at sub 2-1, you've got lots of options in here, lots of good value options. And again, I'm against Fierceness, who's the second favourite. So the rest of the horses are generally, they are 11-2 or bigger in this race. I don't know, if you're playing exotics, to use US terminology, or forecasts, tricast, whatever you want to play in this race, maybe I'll be looking at the likes of Ushba Tesoro, who won't be with the bias of Del Mar, but could pick off some pieces late in the day. There'll be lots of tired horses up front with the pace they're going to go. So I think Ushba will run home strongly. I don't think he'll get there. I don't think he'll win the race, but he should be maybe in the top 4. City of Troy, to me, feels like an all or nothing, purely on the basis of the surface and the kickback. I feel like if he produces A game, he wins. If he produces C game, he'll lose. So I would either be with him or completely against him, and I'm going to be with the latter, though, as I say, I hope he wins. Maybe Derma Sotogake can run a career best as well. I don't really like the US contingent, I have to admit. I think they're all beatable in this spot.
Okay, very interesting and very comprehensive look at this race, which it deserves, and feels like there's confidence behind the Japanese who have been lucky to see the string come out each mornings. And even though some of them have been very fresh and on their toes and shown off their best dressage skills, some of them got into a few tangles. Ushba Tesoro being one of them, they have sent an army for a reason. They are hoping to really show their strength on the world stage this weekend, and I think that they're going to be successful where from that position as well. And there's confidence from TC with Forever Young at the price he is, 11-2. The Breeders' Cup Classic, where, as I mentioned, a 25% winnings boost with SBK. Are you with City of Troy or are you not? That is the main question. And the vibe I'm getting here at the moment, the amount of people that are coming up, to me or to other Europeans saying, is he the best horse in the world? Asking because people believe the hype, and credit to the Coolmore team, the Ballydor team. The words have worked, and obviously his performances have as well. But a lot of people asking me today, is he as good as Frankel? Is he? And I was like, no, I'm sorry, no. But I rate him very highly. This could change things, but for me, he's no Frankel. But regardless, it is a wonderful story, and it's going to make the Breeders' Cup Classic the race that people, really sit up and watch internationally, which is why we love racing. Okay, thank you, Tom. Really great insight there when it comes to this race. We have a lot of European runners who are all familiar names to us from a flat perspective that have really played a massive role in our season, and they're still going strong as it comes to the end of the year. So we're going to play a quick game of boom or bust when it comes to some of the big names that you'll be looking forward to seeing on Friday and also Saturday. So we've picked some of the horses right at the sort of the top of the market, and we're going to get Tom's opinions on whether they are a boom or a bust. So we'll start with Friday, Future Stars Friday, and in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, Tom, Big Mojo.
He's a bust for me. He's showing some good form, but he does lack a little bit of gate speed. And in this race, you need to be forwardly placed. It's almost impossible to come from out the back. I prefer a couple of the Europeans and the Japanese challenger. So bust Big Mojo.
The race that was won by Big Evs in the same colours, Big Mojo this year, but the likes of Asterius, and also we got the likes of Whistle Jacket and the Japanese runner Ikoro Siege is of very, very big interest. Okay, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf, Lake Victoria.
It's a boom. I won't be betting her, but she's by far the horse to beat in the race. It's the one draw that kills me here. And at a short price, I don't want to put my money on her. They're going to do everything to keep her boxed in. But we know that Ryan's the master of negotiating poor draws and poor trips. So I think Lake Victoria deserves to be favourite, and I think she will win. But I prefer to bet something at 20-1 plus in this race each way.
Looking to remain unbeaten, and out of interest, Ryan Moore has been on her both mornings in the workout, so he's obviously either got an affinity or he feels like it's crucial to get her in a good place and him to handle her over the last few days. So let Victoria in the Juvenile Fillies Turf, and then in the Juvenile Turf we have another boom or bust for TC in New Century.
Going to be a bust for me. We'll go off favourite in here, I imagine, for Andrew Balding. Was good at Woodbine last time, but is closely matched with a couple of others who are much bigger prices, so I'll rather play one of those.
Yeah, he's a grade one winner, but he's going to find it even harder again up against a lot of very exciting looking horses and the likes of Al Qudra in that race. Okay, we've got the Saturday again, plenty, I think even better, stronger contingent from the Europeans on Saturday. And one of the star horses of the season from the sprinting division is in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, and that is Bradsell TC.
Yeah, it's a big bust on this one. I love the horse. I think he's had a fantastic season, but you cannot win this race from stall 12. It's just almost impossible. Unless he gets an absolute flyer where he pings and goes 2 lengths clear in the early stages. No chance. Bust.
And Big Evs is right by him in a very equally as poor draw, so doesn't look like it's favouring those drawn. And with that in mind, believing, you think that she's got a nice draw in one, but from what TC's telling us, not ideal to be right on that inside. So it hasn't worked in the favour of those looking for a good draw in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Okay, moving on to the Breeders' Cup Turf. We've got a former Breeders' Cup champion for UTC in Rebel Romance.
Yeah, it's a boom for me. I just love this horse. He's been super prolific across the globe. We know he's going to handle the track. He won this race 2 years ago as well. He's earned over $9 million in his career. It's got to be a boom for Rebels Romance, but it's an exceptional race.
Very much so. This horse has been really well campaigned by Charlie Appleby. They haven't overexerted him since that big win in Dubai, and of course has got very solid form from the King George in Ascot in the middle of the summer. Okay, moving on to the fillies and mares turf, which is over a slightly different trip than we're used to. Not everyone's cup of tea, but would it be the cup of tea of Cinderella's dream, TC?
I'm apologising in advance to everyone here. I'm sitting on the fence. I hate sitting on the fence, especially in boom or bust, where you literally should not sit on the fence. But I am unsure on this race. I'm yet to fully decide. I don't know whether she stays. If she stays, probably a boom. If she doesn't stay, bust. But I haven't come to the conclusion on that yet. So fence, I'm afraid.
And we've recently just lost Ylang Ylang in this race. She was a late scratch after having a fever. She had a slight bit of colic, I was told today. So she was a late scratch. So Ryan Moore's now on content after a very busy last few weeks. Right. Final one is one of the races of the weekend for me. This is the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile. The Godolphin team have a very good record in this race, and they send over their 2,000 guinea winner. Notable speech. So boom or bust for him, TC?
Boom. I think he wins for Godolphin. He's got an exceptional turn of foot, and when he produces his A game, he's almost untouchable. So I'm going to take Boom in with notable speech. I will bet an each way alternative from the US, one of the US contingent as well. But I think notable speech is a horse to beat, and he should probably get the job done if he runs anything like to the performance he showed in the Guineas.
Okay, well, if that hasn't whetted your appetite with some of those names, and that's not even half of them, there are so many more within these races. And notable speeches got the likes of Porta Fortuna and Ramacha Well to take on too. We've also, as I touched on, got the likes of Big Evs, and there's a serious level of horses coming over, and it's not just our familiar names, as I mentioned, 17 Japanese runners. And we touched on the Future Stars Friday. This is also a card where you can get involved with SBKs. There's a 20% ACCA boost on Friday's card. So no reason not to enjoy it late in the evening if you're watching from the UK. And if that's not enough, before we go, we're going to leave you with naps and potentially next best as well. So TC, over to you from this whole weekend, which I'm sure it's difficult for you to rattle it down. And you love your Europeans heading over, but you love your dirt racing as well. So I'd imagine there's probably horses that you've been waiting and feel that this is their moment to shine. So what have you got for us?
Yeah, just a nap for you. Obviously, given plenty of opinions above, but I want to keep my other selections for my Patreon service. Shameless plug. Sorry. So just a nap for you here, and it's going to be Ways and Means. She runs in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint on Saturday. I think it's the first Breeders' Cup race, or the second on Saturday, maybe the first. She's 5-2 currently at the time of recording on Wednesday evening. She's always hinted that she's exceptional. Ever since day one, she's hinted that. She was super unlucky on her second outing as a 2-year-old, and then she suffered an injury which caused her to miss the Breeders' Cup last year. She was going to go into the Breeders' Cup as the favourite for her race, and I think she would have been untouchable, to be honest. But we didn't get to see her. Now, this year, she returned for Chad Brown, but she returned over a mile, and then they tried a little bit further, and she didn't really produce what we thought Ways and Means was capable of on her first 2 outings. Chad dropped her back into a sprint, and her last 3 runs have been scintillating. She'd opposed of Emery 2 starts back, and that race, the test, was just a one-way traffic from the outset. Last time up, she was a short price favourite, but she got the job done very well. It was the perfect prep. I like her going to the West Coast. I think the track will suit. She should get that perfect kind of stalking trip just in behind the speed. And if you look at her rivals, yeah, she's facing some good horses. She's facing Society, who's got nice recent form and should be forwardly placed. She's facing Vava, one of my favourite horses in the US right now, for one of the most underrated trainers in Cherie DeVaux. She's facing Zeitlos, another improving type for Steve Asmussen, and Silla, who gets Mike Smith, for Jubmont and Bill Mott. But none of these horses are as good as Ways and Means if she produces her A game. So hopefully we get to see the best of Chad Brown's trainee, and she will win the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint on Saturday.
Brilliant, TC. And obviously this is quite a particular racetrack. And before we leave with your selections, if you're looking to handicap or try and find some of your own selections and try and use your insights, is there anything that you can give to us from Del Mar in terms of, you touched on the draw, you've touched on the golden stools in 3, 4 and 5, but track positioning, what else do you think you need to have in your favour in terms of course trends that you should be thinking about when it comes to this meeting?
Well, I'm all for everyone, getting involved on the US racing hype train, as everyone probably knows by now. So I'll give a few pointers quickly. Firstly, the track in general is going to be speed favouring. It usually is on the dirt track. Turf track, you can come from behind, but it depends on the distance. The filly and mare turf specifically is a 3-turn turf race. You don't get many of those in the US. That's why Chad Brown's not got any runners. Bit of a kind of snub to the race there. Look out for closing in that race. Definitely, I don't think the pace will hold up. Um, Del Mar, because the weather's so good, as I say, it rides very quickly. But the Breeders' Cup, they always make the track super quick, so you want to be on the front end. Don't expect horses to come from 15 lengths behind and pick them up, apart from maybe one in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile on Friday. And I would say if you're looking to get into American racing, or if you're looking to have a few bets at Del Mar and you don't know anything about the US horses, and I think I'm allowed to do this, go on to attheraces.com, type the horse into the search. You can watch replays from every single one of their previous races, providing it's at one of the tracks they cover, which is virtually all of them. You'll be able to get a good handle on who the good US horses are just based off replays alone. It's the most crucial part of any study, whether it be UK flat jumps, Ireland flat jumps, US flat. If you're doing study and analysis and trying to work out who the good horses are, you have to watch replays. Don't rely on figures. Replays are the way forward.
Yeah, very much. I agree with that. I think that's good advice for whatever you're doing in terms of trying to get your head around running styles, especially with tracks. America's, most of them are, we know that they're all go around the same way, but they do have their nuances. But when it comes to UK racing, you've got to work out a horse that is best designed for certain tracks based on their past performances. So it is really crucial. And it has sort of helped me in a way when I've been looking at this race meeting from our horses that will be probably quite mesmerized by this type of setup we've got here. And I think it's quite interesting also listening to what John Gosden was talking about when it came to the decision to put Emily Upjohn in the Breeders' Cup Turf over the fillies and mares for those reasons that you said, to not give her the difficulty of the 3 turns and the real sharpness of it. So he's allowing her to have a possibly slightly easier option in the Breeders' Cup Turf. Okay, got so much insight. Hopefully I've come up with a couple just to add in there for what it's worth. I have got a bit of, I suppose, heart and head with this one. My uncle bred JRB, shameless plug. We are very amateur breeders, so for us to even have a horse running of this caliber that we have any association with is extremely exciting. But I do genuinely believe that he's got a good chance in the Breeders' Cup Turf, in a race where, yes, we've heard about the case of Rebels Romance from Tom. He's an exceptional horse. He's the Group 1 confirmed, continued Group 1 sort, but it was 2 years ago that he won this race. He probably had an easy way around in a Group 1 last time. Ran very good at Ascot, but I potentially the likes of JRB might be just the improving. We haven't seen the best of him yet, whereas some of the others might just, we know what their ceiling is. This is a horse that has shown his grittiness, his determination. He did it the hard way in the Prix d'Or at Longchamp last time, where he would look like he had every reason for a horse to go past him, but he didn't. I like the way that he will probably be sent forward by Sean Levy. He's got a beautiful draw in 5. That is what we were delighted to see. And I hope if he can get this extra trip, I think he's a decent price at 11-2, but he seems to go the right way. And the way Brian Meehan talking about him at the moment, being one of the best that he's possibly ever trained, is big words for a horse that has come a long way in a short amount of time. So that's JRB. And the final horse is in the juvenile turf sprint. And this is one of the Japanese runners, Ikoro Siege. I've been really impressed by him over the last couple of mornings. He's been working alongside the likes of Forever Young. They have a very different way of training towards these 2 days than a lot of the Europeans, a lot of the Americans. I saw Forever Young do a really fast piece of work yesterday in the run-up to such a big day like Sunday, whereas most horses are just ticking over. And Ikoro Siege is a type of horse that I'd imagine is going to make Forever Young sweat that little bit. This is a US bred horse. He's by Twirling Candy. That is 2 from 2. But the most important thing about him is the records that he has been breaking. He broke the Netikiba speed figure on turf for all 2-year-old shippers from Japan. He had a record-breaking win at Nakayama. He broke a 23-year-old course record. He's breaking records left, right, and centre, and he's clearly got so much natural speed that I think that he might just cook a lot of our European horses who believe that they've got a lot of speed themselves. This horse is doing frightening things. Yes, we don't know how well the form translates and transfers, but the times don't lie. And I think when you've got some of our UK-based horses who've been pretty busy, these are juveniles, I think that this kind of horse has probably been set out for this race by the Japanese, who I said earlier have put a statement of intent to come out and raid the Breeders' Cup. So that's a pretty comprehensive look at the Breeders' Cup Classic and some selections for you from Tom in terms of his top picks from his fancies. We've also given you a boom and bust. Are you with us? Are you against us? Are you with City of Troy? Are you not with City of Troy? Let us know, because I think this debate will rage on until we get to the Classic on Saturday. Make sure that you avail of the 20% ACCA boost on Friday's card, the 25% winnings boost on the Breeders' Cup Classic, especially if you're against City of Troy, because the prices are very good. His prices meant that all these prices are inflated for some very good horses. So we've got so much for you to get involved with. And as ever, all new SBK users get £40 in free bets when you sign up and bet £10 for the first time. We will have our usual SBK preview for the weekend, so don't miss that. If you're wanting to find out what Ross wants from a jumps perspective, we'll give you everything this podcast, but make sure you go to SBK for lots of other offers and promotions. Thank you to Tom. Enjoy this weekend, everyone, and we'll see you very soon.